Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Oston back again with another very simple tutorial on web development. So in this simple tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can create a very simple autocomplete feature on your input field. So in the first tutorial, this is what I showed you, but we hand coded this on a client side. So when the user places like letter O, they bring back the possible values or results that have letter O in them. But as you saw this, we are just getting it from the user, like on the client side, but we want to be fetching this data from the database on the fly without reloading the page. So you can see we are going to be working with PHP MyAdmin. So I hope you have this by the time you'll be watching this tutorial. Then inside this, I have a simple database called Autocomplete. When you click it, it has a very simple table called blog. And when we go inside blog, this is the data that we are having. So we are going to be filtering by the title, and I'm going to show you a very simple live example that I already coded. This is what we are going to be searching for, so the title in the database. So right now here, this is the simple live example. After here I'm going to reload this page and we lose everything. So when the user tries to search for what is, so they will go in the database by the help of AJAX and PHP and get this data on a fly without reloading the page. You can see we are suggesting possible values that the user may be looking for, and this is what we are filtering. You can see if we put data, then they will go in the database and search for this phrase DA, as you can see, and they are bringing back this date picker and how to back up data. You can see how it's very simple, and the one that is suggesting this or putting this drop down, it's now the Materialize CSS framework. So it's the one going to be giving us that autocomplete component. So just stick around and see how it's done. So I'm going to refresh this page and we'll lose everything. We're just going to remain with that. Then if you need Materialize, let me first turn on my data here. Turn on Wi-Fi. So I'm going to first connect on my PC here, and we are going to go to materializecss.com. So you can be typing as my internet is connecting. So just head over to materializecss.com. This internet should be fast. So the moment you land on their documentation page, just click here, get started, on this big button. And scroll down. So make sure you download this file. They will give you the CSS file and JavaScript file. So I'm not going to be downloading this because I always be downloading the same files every tutorial. So make sure you download them and follow step by step. So I'm going to turn off this internet because I don't need it right now. You forgive me for the noise in case you have to hear something in the background. So we are going to go back in our text editor. As you can see, I'm going to be explaining this markup. The only important part that we need is this input field. But right now, on your left hand side, as you can see here, I have a folder called CSS. So when you download this framework, they will give you these folders. There's CSS, and inside CSS I have materialize.mini.css, so I have the minified version. Then in the JS folder I have two files, but the most important one right now is for the framework, materialize.mini.js. So I'm going to explain to you the auto.js file. It's completely empty, so I'll be telling you when to create it and what we are going to be writing inside there. So the first thing that we are going to do is link our CSS file on the page. So we shall use the link tag, and since we are in this directory of Materialize PHP Auto, so that's the folder, then we first have to specify the folder name, that is CSS. Then inside CSS we have materialize.mini.css, and I like linking my JavaScript before the closing tag. So here We put our script tag, can take out the type attribute. We just put the source attribute JS, that's the folder name, /, then we link materialize.mini.js. Now for the auto.js, you can create it right now because it's where we shall be writing our AJAX request. So make sure also you link it below the materialize file. So just put the source attribute of JS, then inside JS we have auto.js. So that's the files that we are going to be using. Then as you can see, I have autocomplete.php. We are not going to be working with that right now. Right now, let us concentrate on the index.html. Let us first refresh this page and see if you have linked our CSS. Yeah, don't mind about the layout. Just make sure you have these files and the classes that I'm going to be showing you. So on this input field that you're seeing here on the page, we have a simple class that we added to it, and this class is called Autocomplete. You can see it's very simple. Just go ahead and add this class on the input that we'll be creating, so long as you have linked the style, the min, like the materialize.mini.js, and also this materialize.mini.js. Go ahead and give this class to this input field. Then the autocomplete off, if we take out this attribute and refresh the page, the moment you focus in this input field, they will be bringing these unwanted autocomplete stuff. So what you have to do is just take back that attribute and the value of off. So autocomplete off, we don't need this normal autocomplete. As you can see, it does not appear anymore. So this is what this attribute does, the autocomplete equals off. Then go ahead and give this input field an ID. So right now you can take out this name, it's not necessary, but you can leave it there. But go ahead and give this input field an ID that you want. So IDs are user defined, as I always tell you. Then we have just put this input button to show that input field, the submit button to show that it's a search engine, but the most important area that we need is this box, the input field. Then I guess that's it for the markup. Let us work with the connections to this area in PHP MyAdmin dashboard. So we want to connect to this interface. Then the moment we connect to that interface, we look for this database and also the table. So I have a simple file that I created here. It's called config.php. So you can go ahead and create it right now. And here it's going to be a PHP file. And the first thing we are going to do, we are going to create these variables. So you cannot, if you want to follow along, just use the same names that I'll be using. So this one's going to be the server name, and it will be localhost. So that's what we are working with. If you go back here, you can see we are working with the localhost. Then put a semicolon there. Then we want to get the username, so the server user, and this one will be root. And last, then we also get the database name, so db name. Oh sorry, we need to get the password, db pass, db pass. So these are variables, and I have no password on that dashboard. Then lastly, we get the db name, and the database name that we want is called autocomplete. So it's autocomplete complete. Then below here, I'm going to create a variable of con, short for connection. Then we use the MySQL I connect, MySQL I connect. So we want to connect to the database. Then since we define these variables here, we're just going to place them inside there. So first is the server name, then the username for the server, then the DB database password, and I said there is no password, and lastly we connect to the database name. And here I'll just check for if there is no connection. I'll use this not symbol. So if there is no con, so if there is no connection, then we shall just echo out failed in case the user doesn't connect to this area. Then we shall say failed to connect. Yeah, we can put that. Then we exit. We don't want the user to execute the code that will be below that file, so we just exit and stop the process. So we have done that. This is what we need in this config.php file. Only the information that is going to be connecting to this interface is the one that we have put in this config.php file. So we can go ahead and close this. Then let us work with our autocomplete future. So right now, let us make this one the last file. Let us go to JS, then we select this auto.js file, and the first thing that we are going to do, we are going to listen for the document load. We say .add event listener, and I'm going to explain this very soon. And we want to listen for the DOM content loaded. So we want to run the code that's going to be inside here when the document is fully loaded. As you can see, right now here we are going to be making our AJAX requests, but before we do that, we need to be getting the information that the user has put in this input field. And to do that, remember we gave it an ID, query input. And here what we are going to do first is we are going to get that input field, and we say I'm going to create a variable here, such input, and assign it to document dot get element by ID, and it has the other ID that you saw, which is query input. Very simple. Then here, since we have given it an ID, so we are able to say such input dot add event listener. So the type of event that we want to add on it is the input event. So every time that the user will be typing, they will be getting that value as the user keeps on typing. And when the user is typing, then we need to run this function. I'll call it get query. So this one is user defined. I've just named it that. You can call it anything you want. So below here I'm going to create that function. So function get query. So make sure it's the same name that you have written here. So what you are trying to do, let me put first the console here, and let's just put 1 2 3 and check out this. So when we go back, refresh this page, press Ctrl+Shift+I on your keyboard to visit the console. So every time don't mind about this error, it's from the browser. So every time the user that will be typing, you see they will be executing this place. So on input, that's the event that we have put on that input field. The more the user keeps on typing, here they will be executing this 1 2 3. Like right now we have just executed it 39 times, like that. So that means we have added an input event on that input field. So we shall be getting that data from that input field every time that the user is typing. Then we shall be also making the AJAX requests on a fly. So the first thing we are going to do, we are going to create another variable here, let query, and right now we need to get the value that the user will be putting in this input field. So right now what the user will be entering that input field. So we are going to create another variable query, and we assign it to document.getElement by ID, and still we are going to be using this same ID, but right now we are going to be getting a value. At first we are just adding an event listener. So here we shall say that input field like query input, that's the ID dot value. So right now we are getting that value. So you can go down here and console.log, and you say, and inside here I'm going to put this variable query. Hope it's the same spelling. Then Ctrl+Shift+I to bring back this console, and let us refresh this page. So every time that the user is typing, let's say Oston, you can see Oston code Cypher, you can see in the console that we are logging out the word that the user is typing. So with that, Ajax will be going back and forth fetching the possible value that will be having those values that the user is typing. So that's the event that we put on that input field, the input event. This, it always run whenever the person is typing. So I hope you have understood that step. When you type in, so Ajax will go on checking for this in a order, K, KA, KM, KM, like that, stuff like that. Then let's go that back to this, but there are possible values, not possible values. There is a possibility that the user may not put anything and try to execute your file or code. So here we shall just put a very simple if statement, and we say query, if query is equal to nothing, so the variable that we created here, then we shall do something else. Then we shall be now making our Ajax request. So here we just put console and just write search again. So I will show you as we go on why we have written this, but I will just put that console.log for now, search again. Now right inside here, if somebody has put something in this variable, then we shall create our Ajax request. But before that, we need to tell Ajax the URL that they are going to be getting this data from. So we shall create a very simple variable here called URL, and we assign it to this file. So autocomplete.php, autocomplete.php, then question mark and q. So q is like a perimeter that we shall be passing to the URL when we are sending this data to the database, and we shall put that assignment operator and we concatenate on the value that the user will be sending. So put a question mark like a semicolon there. So what we are doing, we are writing we are sending data to this file, and we are appending the data that we will be searching for. So this is the autocomplete.php file, then the q for query, short for query, and this that we'll be searching for, and I will show you very soon when we start working with this file. Then below here I'll create another variable called xhr. You can call it request, anything. So I've just decided to use xhr, and we assign it to the new XML HTTP object. So XML HTTP request object. So this is what we have assigned it to. Right now with this we can go ahead and do our JavaScript requests. So right now, since we have created this variable, I'll just say xhr dot on ready state change, and I will show you the next option that you can use in case of this. And we are going to assign this to a function that we will be creating very soon. So I'll just call it receive data. So we have not yet created this. You can put a callback function, but this is the most organized way that you can do this. Then below here, which I'll just say xhr dot open. So, and here it takes in 3 perimeters. The type of request that we want is the get. So we are making a get request to the database. Then the URL that you want to get that data from. So remember, we created a variable here called URL. So in case we never created it, we would carry this all statement inside here. But now we have it in a variable, then we can put URL here. And then lastly, we put true. Tell the browser that this is an asynchronous request. Then lastly, we send that request. So xhr dot send. Very simple. Then before that, after that, then we need to create this function that we wrote here. Remember, we have not yet created it. Then we are going to go here below, remember, outside this function of getQuery. Then we create another function of receive data. It's a function. Let me scroll up. Function of receive data. And here we are going to test for the ready state change and the status. So say if, then we can say if xhr, but we are over repeating this. We can use even this because they're in the same function. So if this dot ready state is equal to 4, so it's like if it's equal to 4, and also this dot status is equal to 200, so to 200 is, it's the same as okay. If everything is okay and it's ready, then we're just going to console.log, and we are going to say this dot response text for now. Then let us go to this file Autocomplete, and we put these PHP tags, and we just echo out got the data, semicolon here. So here we are going to be logging out. Now if everything is okay and the status is equal to 200, then we need to get back the response text from this file, the autocomplete.php. So we need to see this in our console if everything goes well. So when we put h, and you see we are having got the data. So right now we have made the AJAX request to this file, and this file has given us back this data. You can see. Let us refresh again. So the moment the user types in, we make an AJAX request to the file, and the file sends back this data through this response text property. You can see how it's very simple. But right now we have not yet worked with the other autocomplete feature. So let us leave this to this stage, and we head over to the autocomplete .php file, and we see how we can get that data from the database before we write an extra code that is going to be inside here when we get that data. Then let us head over to this area. So remember the file that we created, the config. So this, we need to include it in our autocomplete file, and to do that we shall use the require function, require once, and we want to require the config.php file because it has the database connection, because we want to be working with this variable con. And inside here, what we are going to first listen to, we want to check in our URL that this queue is appending to it. Then we shall say if is set, and we want to check for the, we want to check in the URL using this get super variable. We need to check for that queue. If it is set, then we shall be able to execute the code that will be inside here. Else, if it's not there, then we shall just go and echo out invalid request. So the user may take this autocomplete.php and execute it in the browser. Like, we can carry it here and write autocomplete.php, and they will show that user invalid request. So that's what we want. So if it's not set, that's what we will be showing to the user. Here we can put exit, so they don't execute the code that will be down there. You can see how it's very simple. We need the user to be having this in their URL, and I'll show you how we can put more security as we go on. And to do that, then we are going to create a variable. Not to do that, we are going to create a variable, and we say we get this value, whatever that is going to be in that URL. Shall use this same super global variable of get, and we shall say q. So right now q is stored in this variable of query, but we always need to make sure that we protect the data that we filter, or protect the data that will be coming from the input field. They may put some malicious stuffs, codes that may affect our query and execute things in the database. So we can pass in this MySQL real escape string function, real escape string, and this one takes in two parameters. First, we pass in the database connection. Remember, we have included this config.php file, and it has this variable of con. So this is what this function takes in. It takes in these two parameters, the database connection and also the query that the user will be sending to our database. Then below here, we are going to create a variable of titles, and we are just going to leave this one for right now. I'll come back and tell you what we are going to be using it for, and we are going to assign it to an empty array for now. Then below here, let us now create an SQL query that is going to be getting data from the database. So SQL, you can call it anything you want. I'm going to say select title. So this is the column that we are going to be working with. I want to be specific. We are not going to be fetching everything. So select title from the table blog. So that's the name of the table, blog. So this is the query that we are making from the table blog, where the title, like, then since it's going to be a string, we need to put those simple single quotes and put these percentage symbols, and inside here is where you're going to be putting our variable that we created here, query, inside these percentage symbols. I guess you're not confused. We're just saying select title from blog where title where the title is like the query that the user is going to be passing to our autocomplete.php file. And with that, we are going to create another variable called results. And here we shall assign it to the MySQL I underscore query. So this one, what it does, it executes the query inside the database, and this one takes in two parameters, so the connection and also the query that is trying to execute in the database. So this is what it does, MySQL I underscore query. It takes this query that you have written and executes it inside the database because it goes with the database connection. And here we shall create another variable, blog titles. These are user defined variables, you can call it anything you want, but right now we want to check for the rows inside the database if it really has that data. So the blog titles, we shall use this MySQL num rows. So this one will go and execute through these rows and check if there is the data that the user is searching for. And remember, what the user is searching for is now stored in this result variable. And I'm going to explain again in case you're confused. So let me first go back on the first line. We are just saying select title, so this is the title that we want. Then from blog, that's the name of the table where title, this is the column that we are searching through, like the query. So whatever query that the user has written, let's say you have written HTML will be here. So they will go in the table and search for the title that has the phrase HTML. I guess they're not confused. Then we created a simple variable here. This is user defined, and we assigned it to this function, the MySQL query. And what this query does, it executes the query, the SQL query that you have written there in the database. And if there is some data, that data will be stored here. Then below here we created another variable, blog titles, and we are checking through the rows in the database, in the data that has been fetched from the database, and check if there is some data. And below here, that's when we shall check if there is some data. We shall say if blog titles, so that's the variable that we created here, is greater than 0. So we are checking if it's greater than 0, that means there is. Then we are going to loop through that data using the while loop. This is the most famous loop. Everywhere you can find it, even in WordPress. So we shall use that while loop, and we are going to be creating a simple variable here, row, and we assign it to MySQL I underscore fetch underscore array, and we want to pass in this data results. So that's the data that we have got from the database, that query. What the query gets from the database is stored in this variable results. And below here, that's when we are going to use this array that we created up there. So here we are going to just write titles. Remember, it is an array. We shall use these square brackets, and inside it we are going to put this variable of row, put those square brackets again because we are getting data from the database. Then we specify the column name, which is title, and that's going to be title, and we assign it to null. Let me pull up this file so that we go step by step. I want to show you how we did it from the other file. This is this. I would have carried the file only, one folder. Let's go to Windows Projects, Materialize, then I need the index file. As you can see here, we are having the value from the database and it is being like it has assigned to null, and this is what we are trying to do in our PHP file. We are getting this, and when they execute this code, it will bring back an object as you're seeing here. So this one will be an object when it's being fetched from the database. So the title will be here, let's say what is HTML, and it will be assigned to this null, and this is what we are trying to do here. I guess you're not confused. I'll be explaining more as we go on. So when you have reached here, then remember here we checked if it's greater than 0, then else if there is no data, then we shall just echo and say article not found, but we shall not be echoing out to the user because they will be only searching for that, and we can exit. And as I told you, this array titles, it will be bringing back an object. Then we need to encode that to JSON format to make our AJAX request very, very simple. So here below the file, after all this, I'm just going to say echo, and we say JSON underscore encode, and here we put in the value, and the value that we want is this variable titles that is carrying an array, and they will pass it to JSON format, an array with an object. So we can exit that, and let's go back to our auto.js file, and this is what we need only for our autocomplete.php file. This is the only part that is important right now. Then let us go back to this. Remember here we are just echoing out this response text. Then we are going to create a variable here, let, and this one is going to be received data. So let receive data, and we are going to assign it to JSON.pass, since we are getting back data in a JSON format. So we are going to pass it to so that it's interpreted as text. So we shall say JSON.pass and say this dot response text. And here I'm going to create another variable and call it auto input, and here we want to say document dot query selector all. So in case you are going to be having that input on the whole website, so, and we need to select the input that has the class of autocomplete. Remember this class that I told you in the beginning, autocomplete, it's time to use it. So we are saying document.querySelector all, then we want that input field with that class autocomplete, and below here we shall use the materialize instance of m.autocomplete .init, we initialize it, and here we pass in this variable that we created here up of auto input, and inside it takes in an object, and the first option that we have is data. This is what you saw. I hope I never closed the file. So open file, I need to go back to projects, autocomplete, then index.html. So here we are using this option of data, and remember, as I told you, this it will be turning back an object. So we are just going to get whatever that we have received from the database and we assign it to this. So remember, our data that is got from the database is stored inside this response text, and just know whatever is on the right hand side is stored on the variable that is on the left hand side. So that means our data is stored in this variable received data. So here we just say data and we put in this, because this one we get back an object. Let us go back to our form, refresh, and let us try to type and see if it has done the magic. What is HTML? You can see it's very, very simple. Let us go to the network tab and let us refresh this. So I want to show you what they return when we start typing in. So here when I type in how, you can see, excuse me, sorry, you can see here where there is q and equals ho. When I click that, this is the object that they are returning back, and this is what we uncoded in the first tutorial. We uncoded this object, but right now using this json.pass and repassing our response text, it converts it to an object that is stored inside here, and we are saying data and we assign it to the object that is fetched from the database, and this is what we have. You can see the response, it's in the object format, and we are just assigning this null as you saw here, and that's what we did here in our PHP file. You can see how it is very, very simple to create an autocomplete drop down on an input field using the Materialize autocomplete component. Then why don't we make this interesting? You can see with this, it takes in, like on the right hand side, you can decide to put an image, and for that I have a very simple icon here. It's icon.jpg, and I'm just going to create a variable here for now, but you can be getting this from the database. Image URL, and I'm just going to write, because they're in the same directory, I'm just going to write icon.jpg, and instead of assigning it to null, we can assign it to image URL. So imagine you have images in your database that come with those article titles. You can put your image here. So when I refresh, then we are going to get some simple icons. You can see these icons. So imagine every title that had an icon, it will be placed here. You can see how it's very, very, very simple, guys, to create a simple, fun autocomplete drop down on your input fields. Then see this, let us refresh. So when the user is typing, and they clear the input field, that's when we fire this console that you saw here in the beginning. If the query is empty, then we shall just console search again, so there is no need of showing the user that. Then I guess that's it. I saw some error here, 24, line 24. There's nothing wrong here, but let's work on this. So the user may decide to come and get your file autocomplete and put it here, autocomplete.php. Then we shall put invalid request, but they may come and put that q and say that, and they will be giving them the data even if they have searched for nothing. Then we can come here. Let us take off this image URL and set it back to null. Then we can come here and test for the query if it really has some data. If query equal to nothing, if there is no data, then we shall just echo empty request, and we exit, so we don't want to continue executing the code below. So here, when they do that again, we shall be showing them that empty request. So that's the simple line of code that you need to add there. So guys, subscribe to the channel if this tutorial really helped you or gave you an idea on how you can create your next simple autocomplete search engine. Oh, I don't want to debug anything. So guys, just go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I'll see you in the next tutorials. Peace.